Have you ever watched a million English movies, gone to countless English classes, studied grammar until your brain hurt? But when someone asks you a simple question, your mind goes completely blank. You forget every word you've ever learned. You can't even make a basic sentence. You feel totally stuck. If this sounds like you, don't worry. You're definitely not alone. Thousands of English learners face this exact same problem every single day. You're probably thinking, but Alex, I watch Netflix shows. I study grammar books. I do everything my teacher tells me to do. Why can't I speak English fluently? The answer might surprise you. You're missing one crucial ingredient, something that most learners completely ignore. And that missing piece is reading. Yes, I said reading. I know what you're thinking. Reading sounds boring. Alex, reading is way too hard for me. But here's what I promise you. Reading in English is hands down one of the most powerful ways to improve your language skills. It boosts your vocabulary naturally. It helps you understand grammar without memorizing rules. And it builds your confidence when you speak. The best part, you don't need to memorize anything. You don't need to take notes. You just read and let your brain do the magic. Stay with me for the next few minutes. I'm going to show you exactly why reading is your secret weapon for English fluency. Even if you're a complete beginner, you can start today. Chapter 1. Why reading is your English superpower. Let me ask you something. Why should you read in English when you already go to classes and watch movies? Here's the truth. If you want to learn English really well, you absolutely must read. Reading isn't just helpful, it's the foundation of everything else. When you read, your brain sees how English actually works. You see real sentences in action. You see grammar being used naturally. You discover new words in context. Context means you understand a word because of the other words around it. You don't need to study boring vocabulary lists. The words appear again and again, and your brain starts remembering them automatically. Reading also fixes your grammar without any effort. You don't need to think. Is this present simple or past perfect? Your brain sees the patterns over and over. Then one day, you just know what sounds right. Not because you memorized a rule, but because you've read it hundreds of times. Reading helps with spelling too. When you see words frequently, you remember how they look. If you only hear a word, you might know the sound, but you won't know how to write it. Reading shows you words repeatedly, and you learn to spell them without even trying. Many people think speaking is the most important skill. I get it. Speaking feels exciting and active, but here's the reality. Before you can speak well, you need to understand tons of English first. Think about babies. They listen for months before saying their first words. You need the same thing. Reading gives you more English input than anything else. You can read slowly. You can go back if you don't understand. You don't need to feel embarrassed. The book doesn't judge you or laugh at your mistakes. When you read regularly, something amazing happens. You start thinking in English. This is huge. Most learners constantly translate in their heads from their native language to English. That process is slow and creates mistakes. But when you read often, you begin to feel how English sentences flow. Your brain makes faster connections. You start thinking directly in English, and that changes everything. I had a student named Jessica from Mexico. She could speak some English, but very slowly. She always paused to think about grammar rules. She wanted to speak faster and more naturally. I told her, Try reading every day, she replied. But Alex, I want to speak, not read. Still, she trusted me. She read one simple story every night before bed. After just 2 months, Jessica came to class speaking much faster with better grammar. She hadn't studied any grammar rules. She just read consistently. Reading works for everyone who commits to it. If you want better vocabulary, grammar, spelling, writing, and speaking, start reading today. You don't need to read for hours. Even 10 minutes daily makes a huge difference. Reading isn't something extra or optional. It's the foundation of learning English. It's your first step toward thinking, writing, and speaking better English. Chapter 2. What happens in your brain when you read. So you know reading is important, but you might be wondering, how exactly does reading help me learn English? What's happening inside my brain when I read? The answer is fascinating. When you read, your brain does multiple things simultaneously. You're looking at words. You're thinking about meaning. You're hearing the sentences in your mind, even when reading silently. Gradually, your brain starts understanding how English works naturally. Here's the difference. When you do grammar exercises, you try to memorize rules. You think, this is past tense. This is present perfect. I need to put have before the verb. That's okay, but it's really difficult. You're using short-term memory, which forgets things quickly. But when you read stories, you see the same grammar patterns repeatedly. You're not thinking about rules. You're enjoying the story. Meanwhile, your brain notices patterns. It sees the same grammar used in many different ways. This is called natural grammar learning. You don't study it consciously. You feel it intuitively. Your brain also remembers new words completely, not just the meaning, but also the spelling, pronunciation, and usage. When you see a word once, your brain might not remember it, but when you encounter it in 10 different stories, your brain says, "Ah, I know this word now." That's long-term memory, real learning. Many people use flashcards. They can help, but they're not the most effective method. Why? Because flashcards show just one word at a time. Your brain doesn't see the word in sentences. It doesn't feel the meaning or emotion. It's just memorization work. When you read stories, you learn words in real sentences. You learn how native speakers actually use them. You understand the word's emotion and context. That's how your brain truly remembers vocabulary. Your brain loves patterns. When you read stories, grammar and vocabulary repeat naturally. The sentence structures are similar. Without conscious effort, your brain learns these patterns. For example, you might read, "She didn't go to the party." Later, "He didn't eat his lunch." Then, "They didn't finish their homework." Your brain starts thinking, "Ah, didn't, plus verb means something didn't happen." You didn't study this rule. You absorbed it through repetition. This is called comprehensible input. You read something easy enough to understand, but not too simple. You don't understand every single word, but you get the overall meaning. You don't feel stressed or overwhelmed. You actually enjoy it. When you enjoy reading and understand the story, your brain relaxes. A relaxed brain learns much more effectively. That's why reading beats tests, exercises, and memorizing word lists. Reading gives your brain thousands of examples of real English. Grammar, vocabulary, and spelling all enter your brain naturally. You don't need to force memorization. Your brain remembers automatically. slowly and without pressure. This is how children learn their first language. They hear words many times. They don't study grammar books or take tests. They just listen, and talk. You're doing the same thing, but with reading. Chapter 3: Reading versus Traditional Learning Methods. Many students spend years learning English traditionally. They attend grammar classes. They study vocabulary lists. They practice speaking drills. But they still can't speak fluently. They still make basic mistakes. They still feel nervous when trying to communicate. Why? Because they're learning English the old-fashioned way. And that approach isn't sufficient. Let me tell you about my student Carlos. He studied English for 6 years in school. He knew grammar rules perfectly. He could ace any grammar test, but when he tried to speak in my class, he couldn't form proper sentences. He said things like, "I go yesterday to store." He knew it was wrong, but didn't know why. Carlos felt incredibly frustrated. He asked, "Why can't I speak? I know all the grammar rules." I gave him one simple piece of advice: start reading. He didn't believe me initially. "I need to practice speaking, not reading," he protested. But I convinced him to try. Read for 15 minutes daily. Choose something easy and fun. Don't use a dictionary constantly. Just enjoy the story. After 1 month, his speaking improved dramatically. His grammar got better. His vocabulary expanded. He stopped studying grammar rules and just read. His English improved naturally. Why did this happen? Because reading gives you something traditional learning cannot provide: a feel for the language. When you read, you don't analyze grammar consciously. You see sentences repeatedly. You develop an intuition for what sounds right and natural. Real research supports this. In Fiji, researchers tested 3 teaching methods. One group studied grammar traditionally. The second group read silently in class. The third group listened while teachers read aloud. The results: both reading groups performed much better than the grammar group. Not just in reading tests, but in grammar tests too. Students who didn't study grammar rules became better at grammar than students who memorized rules daily. They repeated this experiment in Singapore. The group that only read silently scored highest on grammar tests, even higher than the group with daily grammar lessons. This isn't theory, it's scientific fact. Reading works. Why grammar rules are just descriptions of patterns. Grammar exercises show you 1 or 2 examples of each rule. But when you read stories, you see the same pattern 20 or 30 times in different contexts with various words. Your brain gradually understands the pattern naturally. You don't need to think consciously. You just know what sounds right. Vocabulary lists are also dry and forgettable. You learn isolated words but forget them quickly. The brain doesn't remember words alone. It remembers words in sentences, stories, and contexts. That's why stories are so effective. What about speaking drills? They help somewhat. But if you don't have words stored in your brain, you can't speak effectively. Reading puts those words inside you. Then when you speak, you have something meaningful to say. I had another student, Linda from China. She told me, "I memorize 20 new words every day, but when I speak, I never use them." I asked, "Do you read regularly?" She replied, "No time for reading. It's too slow." We made a simple plan: 10 minutes daily, 1 short story, no dictionary, no pressure. After just 3 weeks, Linda came to class excited. "I used 3 new words in conversation today, and I wasn't even trying." She was amazed. but I wasn't surprised. That's exactly what reading does. Grammar rules are useful. Vocabulary lists are okay. Speaking drills help. But if you want to truly know English, speak naturally, understand quickly, and feel the language intuitively, you must read. Reading isn't just entertainment. It's not optional. It's the heart of language learning, and science proves it works. Chapter 4. What should you actually read? Now you understand why reading is crucial. You know it improves grammar, vocabulary, and speaking. You're ready to start, but you're probably asking, what exactly should I read? That's an excellent question. Reading the wrong material can be boring or discouraging. It might even make you want to quit entirely. First, let me tell you, this don't read like you're in school. You're not reading to pass tests or write book reports. You're reading for pleasure, to have fun, to let English flow into your brain naturally. Reading for pleasure means choosing books that make you happy. Choose stories that make you smile, laugh, or even cry. Choose books that are fun and interesting to you, not for your teacher or anyone else. Many students say, "But fairy tales are for children." I understand. You want to learn professional English or academic English, but here's a secret: fairy tales, comics, and simple stories contain real, useful English. They use common words and important grammar patterns. Most importantly, they're enjoyable. If you enjoy the story, you'll read more. If you read more, you'll learn more. It's really that simple. What kinds of books are perfect for beginners first? Graded readers. These are books written specifically for English learners. They come in different levels, A1, A2, B1, and so on. They use simple words, short sentences, and easy grammar. Many are famous stories rewritten for learners. These are excellent starting points. Second, fairy tales. You already know many of these stories in your native language. That familiarity helps tremendously. When you know the plot, it's easier to follow the English. Plus, the language is practical, the kind of English used in daily life. Third, comics and graphic novels. Comics are fantastic. They're short, have pictures, and are entertaining. They use lots of spoken English, the kind you hear in real conversations. You can learn jokes, slang, and common phrases naturally. Fourth, short stories. These are perfect because they're not overwhelming. You can finish one in a day or two. Completing something gives you motivation to continue. Now, here's something crucial. How do you know if a book is right for your level? There's a simple rule called the 98% rule. You should understand at least 98% of the words on each page. That means almost every word, maybe only one or two new words per page, not per sentence. Here's why this matters. If you don't understand most words, your brain gets exhausted. You stop enjoying the story. You reach for your dictionary every minute. That's not fun. And when it's not enjoyable, you stop reading. But if you understand 98%, you can guess new words from context. You follow the story easily. You learn vocabulary naturally. You enjoy the reading experience. Most importantly, you keep going. Let me show you what 98% looks like versus 90%. At 90% understanding, Sarah opened the blimpet and went to the Florgon. It was a very stronky day. That's confusing with too many unknown words. At 98% understanding, Sarah opened the window and went to the garden. It was a very sunny day. Much better. Even if you don't know sunny, you understand the sentence. If a book feels too difficult, stop reading it. Don't feel bad about this. Find something easier. You're not a poor student. You're a smart learner who knows what your brain needs. Sometimes students think easy books aren't real learning. That's completely wrong. Easy books provide the best learning. When something is too hard, you don't learn effectively. When it's just right, your brain relaxes and learns quickly. Choose books that feel comfortable. If they're interesting and fun, even better. If they make you smile or want to keep reading, that's the perfect book for you. Chapter 5: How to Start When Reading Feels Hard. Many students tell me the same thing. Reading is too hard, or reading is boring. I don't understand anything. I completely understand. You open a book, see too many unfamiliar words, feel slow and tired, think, "This isn't for me," and close the book. But let me share something important. Reading feels challenging at the beginning for everyone. Even native speakers struggle when they're young. All English learners experience this when starting, but it gets easier quickly if you don't give up. Let's talk about making reading easier and more enjoyable. Start small. You don't need to read entire novels immediately. Don't begin with Shakespeare or newspapers. That's too difficult. Instead, read something short and simple. One page or even one paragraph is enough. You don't need perfection. You just need to begin. I tell students to start with children's books. Some protest, but those are for kids. Yes, they are. But they're also perfect for beginners. Children's books use easy words, short sentences, and simple grammar. They have pictures that help your brain understand without translating every word. And many children's books are genuinely entertaining. You can also try graded readers, books written specifically for learners like you. They're designed for your level. You don't need to guess difficulty. Just pick your level A1, A2, B1 and start reading. These books are great because they give you success, and success motivates you to continue. Here's something crucial: you don't need to understand every single word. This is a major mistake many learners make. They stop every few sentences to use a dictionary. They look up every new word. After 5 minutes, they feel exhausted and quit. They conclude that reading is too slow. But reading isn't about knowing every word. It's about understanding the story. Your brain is intelligent. It can guess meanings from context. Let me give you an example. Look at this sentence. Maria put butter on her toast and drank a cup of glorb. What is glorb? You've never seen this word. But can you guess? Probably yes. It's likely a drink, maybe tea or coffee. That's the power of context. You don't need a dictionary. You just need the story context. Guessing is actually learning. When your brain guesses a word's meaning and encounters it again later, it remembers more effectively. You learn naturally without forcing it. Another strategy: skip unknown words. If you don't know a word but still understand the sentence, keep reading. Don't stop. Don't lose the story flow. Most of the time, individual words aren't crucial. You can still enjoy the book. Students often ask, "Should I write new words in a notebook?" You can if you want, but it's better to read more and encounter words again in different stories. That's how children learn naturally. You don't need to read for hours. 10 minutes daily is sufficient, like brushing your teeth. If you do it consistently, your English will improve. Reading gradually becomes easier, faster, and more enjoyable. When you enjoy it, it becomes a habit. My student Rosa started reading one paragraph daily. Initially, She didn't like it. She said, "I don't understand. I feel slow." But she didn't quit. After 2 weeks, now I can read one page. After 1 month, I read for 15 minutes today and actually enjoyed it. Now she reads every evening. Her English improved more in 3 months than in the previous 2 years. Reading is like physical exercise. The first days are challenging, but if you persist, it becomes enjoyable and your brain becomes stronger. Remember, start with easy books, even children's books. Don't use a dictionary for every word. Guess meanings from context. Skip unimportant words. Read a little every day. 10 minutes is enough. Don't give up. Soon, your brain will change. Reading will feel natural. English will seem easier. You'll feel proud of your progress. Chapter 6. The Magic Power of Stories. Let me ask you something. Do you remember grammar rules from school? Probably not many. But do you remember a story your grandmother told you as a child? Probably yes. Very clearly. That's because stories are incredibly powerful. In this chapter, I want to show you why reading stories beats reading grammar books. I'll explain how your brain remembers language faster and longer when it's part of a story. Grammar books give you rules. Word lists give you vocabulary. But stories give you something much better, language in action. When you read stories, you don't just see words on a page. You feel them. You see how people actually use them. You understand when and why we use specific words. Your brain connects words to images, emotions, and ideas. When we connect things, we remember them much better. For example, consider the word whisper. So, you could write it in a vocabulary list, whisper ika, speak very quietly. But now imagine reading this in a story. The little girl tiptoed into the dark room. She moved close to her sleeping brother and said softly, "Don't wake up, Mom." She whispered the words barely audibly. Now you can visualize the word. You can feel it. You understand its meaning without translation. That's the magic of stories. Stories also teach grammar without studying grammar rules. Here's what I mean. In grammar class, you learn "she has gone to the store" is present perfect tense. But when you read stories, you simply see that sentence pattern repeatedly. She has gone to the store. He has just finished dinner. They have already left. You start feeling the pattern naturally. Your brain notices has plus past participle. You learn it without memorization. This is called language input, and stories provide more input than any grammar book. Let's talk about vocabulary. Many students ask, "How can I learn more words?" I always answer, "Read more stories." Stories give you repeated vocabulary in different situations. That's how your brain remembers effectively. A word list shows you a word once. A story shows it to you 5 times in 5 different ways. For example, the word angry. In a story, you might read, "He looked at her angrily." She shouted with an angry voice. "The angry dog barked all night." His face turned red. He was very angry. "Why did you do that?" he asked angrily. Now you don't just know the word angry. You know how to use it in various contexts. Even fairy tales and comic books help you learn academic vocabulary. One study examined people who read science fiction books. These books contained words students typically learn in school environment: process, system, result, analysis. These are words used in science, business, and university writing. Another study looked at 22 regular novels and found that 85% of the words came from academic word lists. So, even when reading a simple fairy tale, your brain learns serious English vocabulary. Amazing. Right. You don't need textbooks to learn university-level words. You can learn them through good stories. Stories also help you think in English. In stories, things happen. People talk, walk, cry, laugh. When your brain follows the story, it follows the English too. You start wondering what happens next. You guess endings. You imagine characters. You're no longer just studying English, you're living it. That's the ultimate goal. We don't want to study English like mathematics. We want to live it, feel it, understand it deeply. Stories help you do exactly that. Remember, grammar books are okay. Vocabulary lists are fine. But stories are superior. Stories give you grammar, vocabulary, sentence structure, and emotion simultaneously. They're natural, enjoyable, and memorable. Even one story per week can change how you feel about English. It's no longer boring, it becomes exciting. You want to read more. When you want to read, you learn faster. Go find a story right now. Any story, a fairy tale, comic, short novel. If it's easy and fun, it's perfect for you. Chapter 7. What happens after 100,000 words? Let me tell you something exciting. The first 100,000 words you read in English will feel challenging, maybe even boring. You'll encounter unfamiliar words. You'll feel tired. You'll wonder, is this actually helping me? But then something amazing happens. After 100,000 words, your brain starts transforming. It feels like magic. But it's just how learning works naturally. This chapter explains what happens when you keep reading consistently. 100,000 words, 300,000 words, even 1,000,000 words. I'll share my personal story of learning Spanish through reading and show you how to do the same with English. First, what exactly is 100,000 words? It sounds enormous, but it's not that big. A short novel contains about 30,000 to 40,000 words. So reading just 3 short books gets you close to 100,000 words. If you read 10 minutes daily at about 2,000 words per day for easy books, you'll reach 100,000 words in 50 days. That's less than 2 months. What happens then? Initially, you might understand stories only by guessing. You might not grasp all the grammar. But now your brain starts recognizing patterns. You begin identifying phrases. You stop translating automatically. You just read naturally. The first 50,000 words feel slow, but the next 50,000 feel much faster. You stop using dictionaries constantly. You understand more and more. You enjoy the stories. Most importantly, you start believing, I can actually do this. That's exactly what happened to me. Let me share a true story. In 2017, I wanted to learn Spanish. I had taken classes before, but didn't learn much. I disliked memorizing grammar rules and using flashcards. I wanted to try something different. So I made an ambitious promise I would read 1,000,000 words in Spanish. That's about 20 full-length novels. It sounds crazy, but I didn't start with difficult books. I began small, children's stories, easy blogs, podcast transcripts. Then I read books I already knew, like Harry Potter, but in Spanish. Gradually, I moved to completely new books. After 100,000 words, I could feel the change. After 300,000, I understood most content. After 500,000, I was reading without dictionaries. After 1,000,000, I was speaking, writing, and thinking in Spanish. I never studied grammar rules. I just read consistently. That's why I tell students reading isn't fast. But it works. Once it starts working, it works better than anything else. What can you expect at different milestones? At 100,000 words, your confidence grows significantly. At 300,000 words, your vocabulary doubles. At 500,000 words, you start thinking in English. At 1 million words, English feels natural, not perfect, but comfortable. You'll understand grammar you never studied. You'll use past tense, present perfect, and conditionals not because you learned rules, but because your brain feels them. You've seen these patterns repeatedly in stories. You'll also stop being afraid to speak. This is huge. Many learners fear speaking because they feel shy or think their English isn't good enough. But when you read extensively, you know more. You have more words in your brain and more sentences in your head. You feel prepared. When you feel prepared, you feel brave. That's why reading helps speaking, not directly, but deeply. Reading fills your brain with words and sentences. When it's time to speak, your brain is ready. You don't need to construct sentences consciously. You just say them naturally. You don't think, what's the past tense of go? You just say, I went to the park because you've read it 50 times in stories. That's how fluency begins, not with rules or lists, but with 100,000 words. Then 1 million. I know reading feels slow initially. You might think you're not learning, but that's not true. You're learning deep inside your brain. Every story gives you something: a word, phrase, feeling, rhythm, or pattern. When you read consistently day by day, it all accumulates. Start today. Read something easy and fun. Don't worry about perfection or grammar. Just read. Read 100,000 words. Then keep going. After 1 million words, you won't just learn English, you'll live in English. Chapter 8. Read the right way. You now know reading is important. You understand it builds vocabulary, grammar, and confidence. You know that reading 100,000 or even 1 million words can transform your English. But here's something else crucial: how you read matters tremendously. Reading the wrong way feels like hard work. Reading the right way feels like fun and helps you learn much faster. Many students think reading means open a book, examine every word, translate everything into your native language, get exhausted, and give up. That's completely wrong. It's not your fault. In school, you probably had to read difficult texts, answer questions, find main ideas, and explain grammar rules. But that's not real reading. That's academic reading. What we want is language learning reading. That's totally different. Here's the secret. The best way to read is for pure enjoyment. Read silently. Read without dictionaries. Read without stopping constantly. Just keep going. You don't need to understand every single word. If you understand most of the story, 95% or more, that's sufficient. Your brain will learn the rest naturally. If words appear repeatedly, you'll gradually understand them without stress. This is called comprehensible input. You can understand the story even if some words are new. This type of input is the most powerful tool for language learners, and reading provides it in every sentence. How should you read first? Read silently. Don't read aloud unless you really enjoy it. Silent reading is faster and more natural. Your brain can process more information. Second, don't stop for every new word. If you stop constantly, your brain gets tired and you lose the story. Instead, just guess. Most of the time, you can understand meaning from context. If a word is very important and appears frequently, maybe check it later, but not the first time you see it. Third, choose easy books. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Easy is excellent. If you understand 98% of words, you're doing perfectly. If it's too hard, stop and find something easier. That's not failure. That's intelligent learning. Fourth, reread books. Yes, rereading is incredibly powerful. The second time you read a story, it's much easier. You notice things you missed before. You remember grammar and words more clearly. You feel confident. Don't hesitate to read a story twice or 3 times. It helps more than you think. Fifth, track your progress. This is very motivating. Keep a simple notebook. Write down books you finish and how many words you read. You can write short notes like, I enjoyed this book, or this story was funny. It helps you feel like you're moving forward, and you absolutely are. Sixth, build a daily habit. Reading once is good. Reading every day is amazing. Even 5 or 10 minutes daily makes a huge difference. Choose a specific time, maybe morning with coffee or before bed. Make it a habit like brushing your teeth. Habits are the key to learning anything successfully. Finally, combine reading with listening. This is extremely useful. Listen to audiobooks while reading the text. This helps your brain connect written words with spoken words. It improves pronunciation even when you're not speaking. It enhances listening skills and makes words come alive. For example, you can listen to learner-friendly podcasts while reading transcripts simultaneously. You see words and hear sounds. Your brain connects them. It's double learning. Or, if you have both an audiobook and physical book, listen and read together. Many learners find this incredibly helpful. Let's review the best reading approach. Read silently. Don't translate everything. Choose easy, enjoyable books. Reread favorites. Track your progress. Make it a daily habit. Try combining reading with listening. These steps are simple individually, but together they're incredibly powerful. Reading isn't just about understanding words, it's about building an English life one page at a time. The good news: you don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep going consistently. Chapter 9. Your reading plan. Start today. This is it, your final step. You know why reading is powerful, how it works in your brain, and why it's superior to grammar classes and vocabulary lists. Now it's time for action. I'm going to guide you step by step on starting your reading journey today. No excuses. This is where everything comes together. The key to improving your English is beginning to read. The best time to start is right now. Step 1. Choose your first book. You need the right book, one that's fun, easy, and interesting. Don't pick something too challenging. Remember, you want to enjoy reading, not stress about every word. Start with a short story, comic book, graded reader, or book you've seen adapted as a movie or TV show. If you're unsure where to begin, look for books specifically designed for English learners. They're created to be easier and more enjoyable. Many learners start with fairy tales, and that's an excellent choice. Step 2. Set a daily reading goal. Decide how much you want to read each day. Don't worry, you don't need to read for hours. Even 5 minutes daily is enough. Start small, especially if you're a beginner. 5 minutes daily if you're super busy. 10 to 15 minutes daily if you have more time. The crucial thing is reading every single day. Reading a little bit daily beats reading a lot occasionally. Regular practice builds momentum. Step 3. Create a routine. Consistency is the key to success. Decide when and where you'll read every day. It could be morning with your coffee, during lunch break, before bed. Make it a habit. Set a phone reminder if necessary. Don't overcomplicate it. Just make reading a regular part of your day. Step 4. Track your progress. Keep track of books you read. Write them in a notebook or use an app. For example, make a list of books and write short notes after finishing each one. I really liked that book, or the story was fun but challenging. Tracking progress is encouraging and reminds you how much you're learning. Step 5. Push through slow days. You'll have days when reading feels slow. That's completely normal. Don't worry if you don't understand everything or feel frustrated. Just keep going. Even on slow days, you're improving. Here's the trick. Don't try understanding every word. If you don't know a word, guess its meaning from context. It's okay to leave some words behind. Just keep reading. If you feel really stuck, take a break, but always come back. Reading isn't about perfection. It's about progress. Step 6. Enjoy the process. Reading should be fun, not a chore. If you choose interesting books, reading becomes something you look forward to. You might even start feeling like you're living in English. That's exactly what you want. You don't need to understand every word or read super fast. The goal is enjoying the process and letting your brain absorb language naturally. Step 7. Keep going. You will see progress. Progress might be slow initially, but it accelerates. You'll notice you understand more, feel more confident, and start thinking in English. That's the magic of reading. The important thing is persistence. Even when it feels slow or you're unsure about progress, trust the process. Reading works, and it will work for you too. Final reminder, reading is the secret. The most fluent English learners, those who sound natural, speak confidently, and understand English without translating, all have one thing in common: they read extensively. Now you know the secret too. Reading is the key to fluency. The best part. It's not hard, it's enjoyable. You can start today, so go ahead, pick up a book, find a quiet moment, and start reading. Even if you read only 5 minutes daily, you're improving. That's all that matters. Your journey to fluent English begins with the first page. Start today, and you'll be amazed at how far you can go. Your English reading journey starts now. Reading is your passport to English fluency. You read thousands of words. You practice daily. This way, you learn vocabulary and grammar. But you do much more. You build a bridge to think naturally in English. Every fluent speaker started where you are now. What made them different? They picked up that first book. They never looked back. Your brain learns through stories. Trust the process. Be patient with yourself. The path to 1 million words starts with 1 page. Start small. Stay consistent. Watch English transform from a foreign language into a natural part of you. Ready to begin your reading adventure? Subscribe to English Stories with Alex. Get practical learning tips and carefully selected stories for English learners. Share in the comments. What is the first book you will read? I personally respond to every comment. Your fluent English future is just one story away. Start reading today